Hi, everyone. I am so excited today for you to meet a good friend of mine. Her name is Danielle Whah, and she is a client of VAUSA. And we are here today just to learn a bit about her heart, her mission, her passion, and really her journey in delegation and what that's been like. So, Danielle, I'm going to let you talk and just introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Danielle Wah. I am the chair for C12 in West Michigan and Northern Indiana. Um, C12 has been an awesome blessing in my life. Excited to talk to you about that. But VAUSA, Mary Lane, as you know, has literally transformed the way that I get to do what I get to do every day. So excited to talk to you and maybe help somebody else find you.
Yes. Okay. So, tell me, tell me a bit about your journey into C12. And for those that don't know what C12 means or what that is, give them a little explanation of what that is and how that was led into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So C12, we are a Christian peer advisory network. We lead business forums. So essentially, groups of business professionals meeting together, talking about life, leadership, business, but all who share the same faith foundation. So we are confident that leaders are isolated. We know that. You know that. You're a business owner yourself.
Mhm.
And in C12, our main goal is to connect leaders so that they can allow some of the crazy of what they go through on a day to day basis that makes them feel sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes inadequate in the moment, sometimes maybe overconfident, sometimes underconfident, but it gives them a confidential place where they can share that together, realize that they're not alone, learn from others, and then they also learn business best practices that they can bring back into their business for continuous learning and development of the people that they lead and steward. So that's a little bit about C12. How did I find C12? C12, I would say, kind of found me. I've got a pretty extensive background. I've had a blessing and an opportunity to work in all kind of different fields. Started in engineering, moved into sales and marketing, and dabbled in merchandising a little bit, and then ended up back in marketing and product development, mainly in the appliance world. But during the course of leading large and small teams and different people, I knew I had passion for business. I knew I had passion for people. And as I became to grow stronger and stronger in my faith, I realized that this daylight darkness difference between what we do in our work lives and in our personal lives, that was me. And I wasn't comfortable with that. I wanted to figure out how can I be authentically the person that God has called me to be in every aspect of my life. And so after leaving corporate America, I ended up finding C12, finding out that there are groups that meet across the nation and now across the globe, but none in my backyard. And so my husband encouraged me to reach out to learn what it takes to become a part of C12. And it's been a little over 3 years, and we're now here in West Michigan and Northern Indiana, two folks working alongside of me, serving many companies, and just a super blessing to be able to be in their lives and help to be a part of this organization that literally, like, our mission and vision is to transform the world by expanding the gospel in the marketplace. So that's what I get to do every day.
That's amazing. Also, love just hearing, you know, there wasn't anything in your area. There wasn't one in your
Mm,
area, and you're like, okay, well, if there's not anybody, then that means it's going to be me. It's
yeah,
got to
that's
be
right.
me.
Put me
That's
in, coach.
that's right. That's right. It says a lot about you. So tell me, you started this. Obviously, this was all on your shoulders to build and to start and to grow. And what was that journey like, to just get something brand new off the ground and that momentum building? And ultimately, uh, what led you to that point? Because I went out and visited you,
Mm.
actually. For those listening, I was friends with you before you ever became a client of the company.
Mhm,
But I went up to visit you, and you said, "Hey, I need help." So tell me about
mhm.
kind of what was that journey like, and how did you know you were kind of at that crossroads to make that decision?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, starting a greenfield C12 practice is a grind. You talk to a lot of people who, again, share the same faith foundation, but they kind of feel like, hey, I got it all together. My life
Mhm.
is good. My church is good. My family's good. My business is good. None of that needs to merge together. Like, love what you're doing, but I'm out. I'm good. Thanks. And so,
Mhm.
building takes a lot of time. And seeking people, having authentic conversations with them, that's not slow work. That's hard work and it's hard work. And so, as I'm building in C12 and I'm having all these amazing spirit led conversations, like I would go in and talk to you about those all day long, like so good. But the number of conversations I actually have to get one person to say yes to C12 is a pretty big number.
Mhm.
And so as I'm building it up and I'm realizing that takes time, you can't do it without putting your heart and soul into it. And back to the same thing I just said, it takes time. And then you have all the other things you have to do to run a business, right? You've got to be looking at the P&L and how's your financial management. You're looking at strategic vision. My 5-year vision is to be serving over 100 members. I knew I couldn't do that alone. So I was going to have to bring on other chairs like me. So now I'm trying to find folks who want to be involved in C12. And I'm also trying to find partners, people who want to walk alongside and with me and the people that we're serving here. And so my plate just started getting fuller and fuller and heavier and heavier. And I don't like to use the term a heavy plate. I like to use a full plate. But my
Mhm.
plate was getting heavy.
Mhm.
And I got to the point where I knew I was called to do this, but I needed some help, but didn't think that I had the time to train somebody. Didn't think that I could afford it because, again, I'm still just kind of building this thing off the ground. And in C12, we have these gatherings where we get to go talk to other chairs, people who are leading businesses just like mine. Some have been doing it a long, long time, and some of them have been doing it about the same time as me. And it was a strategic vision and planning meeting a little over a year ago. And I was challenged by one of the more tenured chairs that what I needed to do in order to use the highest and best use of the gifts and talents that I had was to hire somebody who can take away the administrative aspect, to truly focus on what the Lord's calling me to do and allow somebody else into the business to help me. So, in typical C12 fashion, he not only challenged me for what I needed to do, but he made me write down a commitment because I agreed with him. I said, I know you're right, but not now. And it was all the buts. And
Right.
he made me write down when I was going to have hired an administrative assistant to come in and help me out. And he would check in on me and hold me accountable to doing what I say, which is what we do in C12 with the members that we have
Right.
the opportunity to serve. So I knew I needed the help. I just kept pushing it off and saying, not now, not now, not now. And it took wise counsel from
Mhm.
somebody that I respect, admire,
Mhm.
I trust to say, hey, it's okay to ask for help. And actually, it has been the best thing for me and the best thing for my business.
Mhm. Why do you think you kept saying, "Not now"? What was going through your head to put this off, to procrastinate it? Because I hear often, "I know I need help, but."
Mhm.
So, what were you telling yourself?
Two main things. First and foremost, it was my own time. I don't have time to find the right person. I don't have time to write the perfect job description so I can find the perfect match and perfect fit.
Mhm.
And then, really, I don't have time to write down all the things that I just automatically do so I
Mhm.
can transfer them to somebody else. I know it's important. I know I should have done it from the start, all these things. But I was like, and the business was starting to really move and grow. And
Mhm.
so it was for me, it's what drives me bonkers, quite frankly, when I talk to folks about C12. I don't have time right now. I'm like, but that's why you need it the most.
That's even more reason, yes.
Yes. So
Um,
the time and then the financial piece. I just didn't think that I was in a
mm,
place financially to be able to do it. And both of those were the worst assumptions ever.
Yeah.
And the only one who put those on me was myself. And
Mhm.
so I had to have somebody come in and tell me, you know what, you need this, you need it now, set a time, let's go.
Mhm. So, at what point did you realize, or maybe, you just took a leap of faith and maybe you still had the doubt in your mind with the financial aspect, but what have you found, um, how do you know that that wasn't true? At what point did you know that that part wasn't true?
I think in my heart of hearts, I always knew it wasn't true.
Mm,
And then it was my own excuse.
mm,
My husband has had an executive assistant for years. And she is more a part of our family than anything else. She knows
mhm,
both he and I ins and outs in all
mhm.
kind of ways. And now she and Victoria are working together to keep both of us in line.
Yes,
So
she is
I
wonderful.
know I
I
needed
got to
it.
meet her, you remember? So,
Yes.
yeah, no, she's wonderful. Um, so okay, so you had someone that held you accountable to doing it. You knew the 2 kind of fears or things that were holding you back was either an excuse or a lie, not true. And so whenever you and I met, we sat down to talk. What and you made the decision like, "Okay, I'm
Mhm.
going to do this. I need to do this." What has that been like for you since you made that decision to today? What difference has that made for you? And really, what was that experience like, finding Victoria and really working with a company that
Mhm.
specializes in that?
So let me start with that.
Okay.
You made it so easy. That's what made it perfect. And when I say you made it so easy, through a course of a conversation in the lobby of a hotel,
Yep.
over maybe 20 minutes of conversation with you, you knew what I was searching for, what I wanted, what I didn't want, what I potentially wanted in the future. And honestly, the conversation was amazing. But what I heard you say is, okay, that's easy. I got this. Let me go do my work.
Mm,
And honestly, Mary Lane, it was like at that point, I had you then doing all the stuff that I said I didn't have time to do to go on and search and find out this right person. And so that made it incredibly easy for me to say, okay, let's go.
mm. So let's talk about your experience working with your amazing assistant. Uh, I would what has that been like? Let's talk about the first few months,
Hmm.
because this is, the first person you had working with you in your business. So, um and a lot of people have fear, especially making that first big hire. The first hire
Mm,
is always, I would say, like the hardest for a variety of reasons. And one thing that I tell my team is, you have to have so much empathy and compassion for the people that we serve, for our clients, because I know from my personal experience in starting the business and me having to be the person delegating and making my first hires, it can be uncomfortable. It
mm,
can, you kind of learn a lot about yourself in that process, but
hmm.
that's my personal experience. But I would love to hear, what was that like for you making that jump for the first time?
Um, the experience in itself in making the jump to hire was easy because after the conversation with you, I already knew, like I had confidence that you were going to give us the right choices for me to look at and to hire. Now,
Mm,
making the choice was difficult because
mm,
you provided candidates that in two very different ways very much fit what I needed.
mm,
So the hardest thing for me wasn't making the choice to do it once we had that conversation, was determining which one of the resumes that were provided, which have hearts and souls and everything behind them, was going to be the one that was going to be the right one, um, to partner and go forward with me. And so I don't know. It was just at that point when I was looking at that and I talked to my husband about it and we were reviewing for certain things and he was just like, okay, this person, you're going to have to like be open,
Mhm.
transparent with them. You have to click with the right individual. And I knew it was Victoria. And I just did. And so the first 30 days or so, getting to know each other, one of the first things we did, and this is a practice that I had from years ago, back when I was at Whirlpool, is a one pager that tells more about you, your family, your values, your likes, your dislikes, what sports teams you cheer for, like where do you go to church, who do you invest in, like what charities have grabbed your heart, all the things. And so I remember when I asked Victoria to give me hers, it just reinforced everything that I already knew in the selection that I had.
Mhm.
Um, this is just a total random on the side, but
Yeah.
as a part of that, I asked her, what's her life verse?
Mm.
Because we all, I believe, we all have life verses, whether we know them or not. Mine is Ephesians 3:20, and she wrote that it was a verse out of Ecclesiastes. And I loved that verse so much that we have a prayer room outside, and I have the verse printed on our prayer room outside. So when she was just here with us this past week, she got to go into the prayer room and during her morning devotions, sitting in the prayer room with a verse on the side or on the wall that just inspires me every day. And it makes me think about her and VAUSA and how she was the right fit for me and our home and our family and certainly my business.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. What your husband said is extremely wise. One of the things that we try to emphasize is this person that you hire could have, when you're doing those comparisons and you're looking at resumes, I mean, the resume is just like one dimension, not even of an individual. And I would much rather hire someone that has the ability to learn and grow the
Mm,
skills but is the absolute right fit with a values alignment and has the posture needed and is a culture fit for me and my organization, because I can teach and I know as long as this person has the capacity to learn, we can go so much further. um, but it's you're investing in a relationship,
mm,
and
mhm,
I think that takes, in any relationship, it takes time, it takes intentionality. What you just said, you took the time to get to know her and understand what drives her, what motivates her, what brings her joy, and um, uh, in your experience, because you work with all kinds of business owners, those are the people you serve, and you hear all kinds of stories. I'm curious. Have you ever encountered any of your people talking about issues in working with their team, where that kind of relationship doesn't exist?
mm, mhm. Absolutely. And, there yeah, absolutely. And what I assume is the relationship to where they don't have that authentic relationship with the
Hmm.
people.
Hmm.
Um, I just watched a quote, um, from Brandon. He is a C12 member, and it was something to the effect of, "Don't let your work get in the way of doing your work."
Hmm.
Brandon, I'm sorry if you listen to this. That's not exactly what you said, but it's close. It's close. And really, what he was saying is don't let your work get in the way of doing your work. Your first work is relationships,
Hmm.
right? I mean, God put us on this earth in community with others for a reason
Hmm.
because he knew we needed it. And
Hmm.
so when it says don't let your work get in the way of your work, I think about that with my relationship with Victoria or anybody's relationship with their team and their staff or potential new hires in the future is you need to know them, their personality, their heart, what makes them tick, what makes them happy, in order to then appropriately be able to work together so
Hmm.
that you can then authentically challenge each other without taking offense, so
Hmm.
that you can push each other to do more without wanting to pull your hair out.
Hmm.
So you can be open and transparent when stuff is tough and hard, and share that burden and help carry that burden for somebody else. That stuff just doesn't happen if you don't take the time to get to know them and their heart first.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. That's, you know, in in our industry, there's so many different virtual assistant companies that exist out there, and you know, what makes us different is we do prioritize our people over profit, and we live that out and we act it out, and we believe that we should be using our business as a ministry, and our passion is to use our God-given gifts to serve others. Um, and all of that encompasses relationships and true
Mhm.
connection with people. And what I love about you and about the people we get to serve and our clients is that everyone values that.
Mhm.
And I think if anytime I've talked to someone interested in our services and they don't value that relationship, I know it's just not going to work.
Mm,
It's
mhm.
just not going to work because as soon
Yeah.
as one tiny little bump in the road comes, I mean, either party is just going to be like, I'm out.
Mhm.
No one's willing to work through some challenges that are probably very figure outable. And so I just want to say
I
I really appreciate that about you.
Absolutely. And one of the things you were just talking about that made me think back through, you asked me the two things that were the barriers,
Yeah.
right? Remember, I
Mhm.
mentioned my own time in training somebody and then the
Mhm.
financial aspect as well. And both of them, we clearly said at the beginning, were fallacies.
Right.
They were not true statements that I allowed myself to believe. But the training part, the most beautiful thing about that is the way that you train your team.
Mm.
You didn't put that on me. I didn't have to teach Victoria about different tools or resources. Certainly, there's things that were unique to my business that I did, and teach and learn, and having her learn about that. But the way that you leverage your team and their collective learnings together to help somebody onboard quicker, to help
Mhm.
somebody learn new skills, the best practice sharing has been super fabulous. And then, as you mentioned, you're thinking about how you're going to help them succeed. And
Mhm.
they're helping us by jumping and running up to speed quicker. I mean, it's just really this great um, continuous learning cycle, if you
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
And I think we all benefit from that. So I think that's one thing that sets you guys apart for sure.
Thank you. Well, that's one of our values is intentional growth. We're never satisfied with the status quo, and thank you for mentioning that because it is. Um, I don't know. I feel like well, first of all, I was a teacher before I ever became a business owner, and in education, all the teachers are helping each other. And we
Mm,
always said, like, let's not reinvent the wheel, and we had some of the most creative humans that would come up with amazing things. And and then they would share it. All of my teachers I ever worked with just had an abundance mindset and wanted to
mm,
help each other because ultimately we had the same mission. Um, and that's what we believe here. And we do. I mean, and Victoria, your assistant, specifically Victoria, is a great contributor too.
mm.
And she's not just coming in to take and to learn. She's coming in also to teach, and she has over and
Yes,
over again, which I just love. I hope she hears this. I know she will, but
she will.
she's so good at that. And
Absolutely.
she has a teacher's heart as well. So,
And
and a
she
gift
does because
for that.
yes, that's what she does, and
Yes,
she homeschools her girls, and
that's right.
I just love hearing about all those experiences that she's had,
Mhm.
and I do think that's part of what makes her so perfect for this role.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So tell me, if you were to talk to someone who is kind of on the fence about this, about making a decision, not necessarily with VA USA, but for delegation, if you could tell them like, hey, here are the top three things that have impacted me and has been a big change for me, just choosing to delegate and make the right choice in my
Mhm.
hiring decision, what would those three things be?
Mm. Time, and time. The gift of time and time.
Mhm.
And just we underestimate, I think, sometimes how long it takes to get a task done.
Mm. Mhm.
And Victoria and I went through that this week. So we were talking about this earlier. She came into town to help me
Mhm.
prepare for what we call our Day of Unity. So all of the members that we serve across West Michigan and Northern Indiana gathered together, and we had one meeting the night before with dinner, and then we had an all-day event the next day. And we had hours of preparation going into that. However, the last 24 hours down to when we're bringing everything to set up, there's so many tiny details that just take so much time. And I think we underestimate sometimes the amount of time that it does take to do
Mhm.
certain tasks.
Mhm.
And by thinking, oh, I don't need somebody to manage my calendar, like I can do that. It doesn't really take that much time. Yes, it does. Oh, I don't need anybody to like field my emails and tell me what's most important. I can do that on my own, like at my kid's soccer game when they're not in or something like that. No, be present where you are
That's right.
and let somebody else do that for you. And so I think this fallacy of how quick we think we get things done ourselves, we just don't. And she and I realized that when we were working together to get ready for this meeting. Once we got it all set up, she was just like, "Whoa, okay, this takes more than I ever thought that it would." And I think that's what a lot of these leaders think
Mhm.
is it's not going to take that much time to
Mhm.
do it myself. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure the time that benefit that I'm going to get. And so one thing I would recommend is do a time study, and
Mm.
people are
Yep.
scared of that too. One, because I think it's reality they don't want to understand, but two, it takes time to do it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and it also, I was at a C12 forum this week actually, and um, someone said, show me your calendar and your bank account statements, and I can tell you where your priorities lie.
Mm.
And everyone was just quiet for a minute because I knew everyone was thinking, "Oh my goodness, what does that say about my priorities?" And a
Mhm.
lot of times what we want and where our heart lies doesn't add up to reality of what we're doing every
Mhm.
day. That's one. And also, um, so yes, a time audit that will help tremendously. Go
Mhm.
go look at your calendar and journal, not just how much time it's taking, but what you're spending your time on.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
also it for me personally and for a lot of business owners that I talk to, it's what you're talking about is capacity, and time is just one aspect of capacity.
Mhm.
It's also your mental and emotional bandwidth that you
Mhm.
have. Some
Yes.
Sometimes I know if I'm not delegating effectively, it feels like in my brain that I have 1,000 tabs open.
Mhm.
And if I'm delegating correctly, then it feels like I may have 2 or 3 open at one time because I've literally transferred some of these tabs to
Yes.
someone else's brain, and I don't have to worry about it. And now I can maximize the impact that God wants me to make, that he uniquely equipped me to make. But if I'm trying to do activities that aren't in my giftings, then
Mhm.
I'm not going to be able to leverage my actual gifts and make the impact that I believe I was created to make. But I'm curious, you know, have you felt like not just okay, now I have more time back. Have you noticed a difference in how you're able to show up for your people
Mhm.
and a difference in impact?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, 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 and yes. The difference and impact in how I can show up, both of those for sure. So I can spend more time serving the way that I'm called to serve because other stuff is getting done in the background.
Mm,
But it's not just getting done. I know it's getting done with excellence because we've had conversations on expectations and service levels, and we have an alignment to that. So never am I fearful that the job isn't going to get done with excellence. Do we
mhm,
have our mistakes? Do things go wrong? Absolutely, but we talk about them just like something simple. So for instance, one of the tasks that Victoria does for me is she helps me prepare the presentation decks that we run our monthly meetings from. And in the beginning, she would have it complete, and then I would go in and make the tweaks and updates that I want to make because I'm a little bit of a freak when it comes to stuff like that. And she had to come out to me and say, Danielle, stop.
That's awesome.
This is my job. If
Mm.
there's a change that needs to be made, I want you to tell me what you want changed, because if you just do it, I'm never going to know it.
Mm.
And that way, if you tell me, then I'm not going to do that same thing over and over again. And it's going to be easier, faster, better for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
so
is
it's
so
those kind
challenging.
of things. Yeah, for
That is
sure.
so challenging to resist that urge.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that is so true. And I catch myself sometimes doing that too. And that's such a good point. And something that we want to help our clients do and understand exactly that. Like, it's gonna take actually more time on the front end for you. It's going to feel a little bit more slow in the beginning because you're actually having to explain and give feedback,
Hmm.
whereas previously you could just go and do it.
Right.
So how what do you I know she told you like, hey, stop, right? That was obviously helpful because we don't a lot of times realize we're doing that.
Hmm.
But, I'm curious, have you had anything else that kinda helped you, overcome that impulse to do that? Or and was it frustrating for you to kind of unlearn those things and have that new habit of, "Okay, I need to slow down and explain and teach," and
Yeah. Frustrating, no. A little scary, maybe. And again, the little scary is more about me and not
Mm,
approaching everything closed fist, right?
mm,
And literally approaching it open handed to say, when I'm giving this, I'm giving it to you, and you're going to take it and run with it.
mhm,
I think that scary fear thing is in a couple of ways. One, if I'm allowing somebody else to do it and expecting them and challenging them to do it, am I going to be less sharp in
mhm,
that area? There's always this, okay, now all of these other things have been delegated and they're being managed by somebody else. Now, if something changes in the future for either of us, how am I going to relearn all that again? Do I have to learn all of that again? And the one thing that I love, about what you instruct the folks who work for you that then help us is SOPs, right? Everything should have an SOP. And when it does and it's kept up to date, it takes that fear out, because then you can truly give it over with open hands and say,
mhm,
this is yours, and take it and run with it. And knowing that it's going to continually be tweaked and advanced and updated, and take some of
mhm,
that fear out of it.
mhm. Yep, that's true. Um, well, Danielle, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else that um, you feel like people should know um, about making this choice, or if you were to tell anyone about making this leap, what do you want to tell them?
Yeah, I think where I would go with this is it's more than just your business.
Mm,
It's more than just your calendar and email management. But when you have a relationship with somebody like I have with Victoria, she holds me accountable to so many things. The number of times, so sharing of calendars, she not only sees my C12 calendar, but she sees the personal calendar for Ken and I, my husband. She sees the calendar that we have with our kids, and they're all layered together. So she sees all of our mess. And she's the one where meetings will come in, and I'll be like, okay, I said I needed to stick to my morning routine so I can get my devotion in and get my exercise in, but just it's okay, put them in there. And she's like, nope, we're gonna put it somewhere else. Or sometimes, she will, because I'll say we've got to, and she helps remind me what's important sometimes. The
mhm,
number of times she has told me that I'm not going to make it back from a meeting in time for date night, or we can't schedule this because you and Ken have date night in your calendar is crazy.
Mm,
But again, when you have somebody like this and you open hand and you give them access to everything, it's more than just helping with your business. It's helping with your whole life.
mhm.
And, we're not just in business, we're not just who we are outside of business. We are one person. And so I'd just say if you were thinking about getting an admin and you haven't pulled the trigger, your first instinct to think about it is right. Just do it. Get an accountability partner, write down the date, and let's get it going.
That's good. That's good stuff. Thank you so much, Danielle.